Well, hello, friends. You may be seeing in front of you two less familiar faces that have been doing these full moon meditations for some period of time. My name is Sheldon Hughes, and with Helena Bach Hughes, we are the ones doing this work this evening, and it is quite a joy both to be here and also work with the energies that are present during this solar full moon for us. I want to begin just with a few words about me, probably because most of you we've not met. And just to say that this work, working with these energies and as part of the overall thrust of Meditation Mount and trying to bring the energies of the Christ into the planet as fully as possible, has been with me. Started this kind of process basically in the middle of in the 1980s. Happened to go to a talk that was given by a great friend of ours, Michael Robbins, Lucis Trust, and heard him speaking about it. And it really, I had not read any of this material before. That began a study process for me of learning about this marvelous teaching. And my whole focus, as I look back on my life now, has been primarily around religion. I majored in religion in college, and that was a pretty good major there. And then when I graduated from college, I spent a couple of years in relationship to Union Theological Seminary in New York City, and then got involved with working with groups, what it means to create, well, we're going to put it here, but create goodwill among people in small groups. And that's was a major focus, and which continues, but was a major focus of mine for, at least 40 years from that period. So what's so marvelous about this teaching, as we read and reread and reread again, to try to both understand not only the words that are being spoken to us, but to begin to experience the energies that are tapped and begin to play out in our own lives. As that process begins, that's a process basically, as our primary teacher here in this teaching, Joel Kuhl, says, it's the process of an aspect of us, of the soul, that is beginning to take over and work with the personalities which we all have. And that process is an extensive process. But at the same time, as we read and work together and begin to see the effects of our own evolution, our own evolving, the fuller soul control of our own lives, and how it might well play out in the world today. As we do this, there is a deep joy, at least that I experience, and that joy both is it's an emotion, but it also is a kind of sense of belonging to some greater expression that's with us today, even amidst all the struggles that we have going on this planet. And as we see through those struggles and begin to understand what is being taken down and what wants to be brought back up, we find ourselves working with what we call some members of the spiritual hierarchy, not any individuals that we know personally necessarily, but we know a bit about them. Of course, the Christ being the most highly featured, and in one should be, because this is his time, and his time since the beginning of this age of, now we're going to this new age, you might say, Pisces. So from Pisces now onto this one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read some of DK's writings from esoteric astrology, so particularly as it's focused around the work of the Buddha, and what we're going to see, I think, is the fact that there's been several expressions of the Buddha over time that we can track. Some of it comes from his work, gosh, many, well, 300, 400, 500 years before Christ, appeared in Jerusalem through Jesus. But there's also the role that the Buddha plays, because DK tells us that he and the Christ, the Buddha coming from the what was called the moon chain, another expression of the whole Earth scheme, which was broken up for reasons which need too long to get into. But he and the Christ, he came, joined the process here on this planet, on this particular expression of the planet, and they both went through the third initiation, to use that language, together. And there's some wonderful stories about that process, but the point to be made here is that they have been brothers in many respects. In one respect, the Buddha leading the way because of his longer experience, and also his place in relationship to the other members of the spiritual hierarchy. As we read about the Buddha in this context here, in this particular sign of Taurus, which is a sign of the will aspect. For so long, we've thought about the will being basically the activity of getting things done, the kind of that kind of energy which comes in and can make things and pursue them until they're complete. What we've learned from the studies of readings and some of the writings of Alice Bailey, written by Master DK, has been that there have been festivals held during this particular time of the season for a long, long time. And we have been able to catch up a little bit with some of those festivals in the Himalayas, probably in the last 40, 50 years. So we had the sense of, and what Lena will work with us a bit more about, is that the presence of the Buddha has been working through into expression to help the Christ and spiritual hierarchy do its work. And that began maybe as early as the end of the Second World War. I mean, that was very important. The work was going on all the way through that period, trying to pull the nations together so we wouldn't go to war, but we did what we didn't do, you might say. And that war was very powerful, both from this point of view of being able to see what was going on in the world, but also under taking down those expressions, particularly in Japan and Germany, of capture by what we will often call here the Dark Lodge. When that was finished, that work was completed with the end of the Second World War. Let's say we're around 1945 now, and the founding of the United Nations was rolling along at the same time. We had a process whereby the Christ began to come closer to us. The work of the Buddha was beginning to change. There's discussions about the vesicles, or the aspects of the Buddha which have been passed on to the Christ, and we don't know how that works or how it takes place. But his role now has been to play a role with some other very important spirit of peace, avatar of synthesis, in helping the Christ and the spiritual hierarchy both come closer to humanity but also help us to see our way through the beginning of this new age. So when we talk about the will aspect of Taurus, we're talking about here now the will to love, which was birthed in some respects, at least love, the whole aspect of love was revealed through the Christ in his work in Palestine 2,000 years ago. The fact of that coming slowly to the fore is a sign that both we have as humans on this planet been able to gather some of those energies and begin to live a life more in relationship to one another, less in fighting and less in fighting one another, I guess is the best way to put it. And we face a situation today where there are some major forces on the planet which are giving us a real chance, a real opportunity to see which direction will we go. Because the Buddha now, as I say, his energies are going into the will to love, to make that even more helpable to us, felt. And his strengthening, of both the work of the Christ directly, but also the spiritual hierarchy, is more what he is about today as we understand it. There may be some others who see it from a different perspective, but this is how we're looking at it today. So what I'm going to do is read from some of the writing that Alice Bailey got from the Master DK back in those days, and we get a sense of what the Buddha's role a little bit is about today, and then we'll finish up and just pass it on to Helena for meditation. Well, I'm going to read this, starting on page. Anybody who's very book-oriented, esoteric astrology pages, starting on page 623. And we read the keynotes of illumination, of vision, of sight, or of spiritual perception, and the fusion of the Occidental or the mystic way are dominant in this cycle. The Buddha summed up in himself all the light of the past as far as humanity was concerned. Buddha was the culminating messenger and demonstrated the innate possibilities of mankind, radiating the light of wisdom in relation to the light of substance, and producing that dual blaze or flaming light which had been fanned and fostered, though not fully expressed by humanity up to that time. He came forth, the Buddha, as the flower or fruition of the past and as the guarantee of man's innate capacity. Christ, whilst able also to say, I am the light of the world, Christ has gone further in his manifestation and given a vision of the next step, demonstrating the light of the soul and pointing to the future, thus presenting that which could be, because through the Christ, he had released on earth the cosmic principle of love. We need to understand that love is an aspect of the will. This is the will of God, the will of the Christ, yes, but the will of God, the will of our solar logos. And this is a point very little realized by the mass of men and women. It is the will to draw into itself, or the will to attract into itself. And this will, when exerted toward that which is not material, we in reaction, the differentiating mind, call love. So we're talking about the will to love now, and what this wants to mean for all of humanity. But humanity has to see that which must be loved before the power of the will is sufficiently evoked. Then the vision can become a manifestation and a fact in expression. It is here that the wonder of the work of Christ, the Lord of love, emerges into our consciousness. Christ makes it very clear that this love which he demonstrated, was an aspect of the will functioning through the medium of the second ray. The second ray of love, actually, called the second ray of love, and released into the world the cosmic principle of love. Again, the three aspects of the divine will could be seen functioning through the second ray. So there is the will to initiate or to condition, which demonstrates in Christ's work as he inaugurates the era wherein it becomes possible for the kingdom of God eventually to appear on earth. Actually appear on earth, not yet, but coming. In reality, this will be a demonstration of the fusion of the two centers, humanity and the spiritual hierarchy. Called often in these texts, the kingdom of God. It will inaugurate, when this takes place, an era wherein, through increased capacity to see the vision and increased power to identify oneself with that vision, a race of men and women will be produced whose life expression will be that of love wisdom. Another aspect which works through the will now. The will which brings fulfillment demonstrates through the second ray by means of that driving force which enables the second ray soul steadily to achieve its goal, relentlessly pushing forward, permitting itself no let up or leeway until the desired goal is reached. This is different from the expression of the will of the first ray, which is dynamic, which crashes forward in spite of all obstacles. And this does not require the slower methods, the steady drive, but we're going to be moving into a period of love. It is also the will which conquers death because of its intense love of reality and of that persistent one who exists behind all phenomena. Not said here, but we read as we read through the first chapters there in Aries about the Christ resurrection. There is no death. We see the ending of a certain phase of our development and expression, but we do not die. Our life continues. Our lives continue, and to that continuance, the work of the Buddha supporting the work of the Christ, that continuance is the work of love. So in the old commentary, this type of will, the will to love, is spoken of in the following terms. The transcendent one said, I am alone. I must arise and seek with ceaseless urge that which produces completion and round out my circle. Oh, my intensity, my life, and make me truly one. And this because I recognize the two. I must have union with my other self, the self I dimly sense. Under my heart, I drew that other one, and drawing thus, I gave enlightenment. I dowered with enrichment. I freely gave. Now, this embodies not the mystical vision of the other one, but the will of the planetary logos, the will of the planetary logos, the incentive behind the life of Shambhala. It is the Lord of sacrifice who speaks. The keynote of sacrifice, or the process of making whole, bringing all things together, runs through all that concerns the will aspect as it functions through the medium of the seven rays. This becomes beautifully apparent in the activity of the second ray, as it is the channel for the will of God. It knows itself now as the transcending will because its expression of cosmic love, attracting, fusing, and producing cohesion, behind this lies a synthesis, vision of divine intention. This love differentiates between process and goal, between initiation and that which is revealed by the initiatory process. And that is something which as yet is unknown to initiates below the third degree. And herein lies the distinction between the Christ and the Buddha. The latter, the Buddha, revealed the process, and all the teachings of the Buddha, the process for working through this. The Christ embodied in himself both the goal and the process. He revealed the cosmic principle of love, and by its means embodied that cosmic principle in himself. He produced effects also and momentous changes in the world through those presented to him for initiation. This, we speak in ray language, second ray knows itself as the transmitting will, because through its means something passes between the pairs of opposites, spirit matter, drawing them together until eventually they form one blended whole. You can see where this is wanting to go over the next couple thousands of years. This is a basic mystery, the basic mystery of initiation, and concerns the at-one will, which functions through love. Its lowest expression and its most material symbol is the love between the sexes. Now, this was written some years ago, so we've learned even more about this reading this part. This love knows itself likewise as the transforming will, because the entire evolutionary process, which is in the last analysis the working out of the interrelation between God and his world, between cause and effect, between life and form, this entire evolutionary process is based upon the transformation brought about by divine attraction. This enables spirit on the shoulders of matter, as Blavatsky expressed it, and forces matter to achieve the purification, which will lead eventually to an act as a transparent medium for the revelation of divinity. And finally, this will finds itself, knows itself as a will which transfigures. It was this transfiguration which Christ manifested when he emerged before the startled eyes of his disciples as the light incarnate, and, as the Bible puts it, was transfigured before them. This entire process of transcending and transfiguration is worked out in relation to the second ray by the combination of the three constellations through which this ray chooses by an act of its will to act in time and space. This, as you would read on, looks at them for a moment, but I'm stopping here because we now want to move forward meditation part of this work with you this evening and turn this over to Alina.
Okay, thank you, Sheldon, so much for all that and setting the field. These stanzas or paragraphs from the work of the Master DK really are meditative. We could take each one of them and meditate on them and go deeper and deeper. So they're not to be read, they're to be experienced. All right, so I am going to share my screen and do show you a few images. And I do need to share a screen. So let's see, one thing at a time here. Here we go. Share my screen. All right. So the solar full moon of Taurus is about the penetrating light of the path. And this is really the overlighting energy that is the note from a macro perspective for Taurus. Sheldon mentioned quite a bit about the ceremony that I would like to say more about the ceremony that takes place during or had been taking place during the full moon of Taurus. And it's been called Wesak or Vaisaka in the East, and has been celebrated every single year in the Himalayas with Mount Kailash in the background. And this image is one of the most beautiful, extraordinary images I have come across by a friend and artist, Princess Donald, who rendered this from the exact teachings of Alice A. Bailey, who was the amanuensis for the Master DK. And he took this from her autobiography describing an actual experience that she had during this time period. And I would like to read it to you directly because it is so really profound and living in her own words. So she says, I twice, whilst living and working in Great Britain, took part in an extraordinary ceremony, and it was nearly 2 decades after my participation that I discovered what it was all about. I found myself, while wide awake, in this valley and forming part of a vast, orderly crowd, mostly Oriental, but with a large sprinkling of Occidental people. I knew exactly where I stood in that crowd and realized that it was my correct place and indicated my spiritual status. The valley was large and oval-shaped, rocky with high mountains on either side. The people crowded in the valley faced towards the east and towards a narrow, bottlenecked passage at the end. Just before this funnel-shaped passage, there stood an immense rock, rising out of the floor of the valley like a great table. And on the top of the rock was a crystal bowl, which looked as if it was 3 feet across. This bowl was full of water, and standing ahead of the crowd and in front of the rock were 3 figures. They formed a triangle, and to my surprise, the one at the apex of the triangle seemed to me to be the Christ. The waiting crowd appeared to be in constant movement, and as they moved, they formed great and familiar symbols. The cross in its various forms, the circle with the point in the center, the 5-pointed star, and various interlaced triangles. It was almost like a solemn rhythmic dance, very slow and dignified, but quite soundless. The crowd froze into immobility. At the far end of the bottleneck, a figure was seen in the sky, hovering over the passage and slowly approaching the rock. I knew in some subjective and certain fashion that it was the Buddha. I had a sense of recognition. I knew at the same time that in no way was our Christ belittled. I got a glimpse of the unity and of the plan to which the Christ, the Buddha, and all the masters are eternally dedicated. I realized for the first time the unity of all manifestation and that all existence constituted one divine and living whole, which was moving on to the demonstration of the glory of the Lord. I grasped faintly that human beings needed the Christ and the Buddha, and all the members of the planetary hierarchy, and that there were happenings and events of far greater moment to the progress of the race than those recorded in history. So that was her experience, and what an extraordinary memory. Well, actually, it wasn't a dream. It was an actual happening unfolding before her eyes, and she had it occur to her twice. What is interesting for all of us now is that DK also wrote in the teachings that there would come a time when the Buddha would actually move on, and that as extraordinary as this is for only an 8 minutes appearance, it was constituting a huge sacrifice for him to come into these dimensions and be pulled away from the work actually that he was doing. DK also wrote that there would come a time when the Buddha would move on and leave to the Christ, being the conduit for these great energies. And there is an obscure text written by the Master DK where it says that the Christ would take on the mysterious vestures of the Buddha preserved for him and step into his new duties with these vestures along with what the Christ himself would bring, and thereby release the Buddha to take on other work. So in the esoteric teachings in the year 1945, Master DK put forth that Christ had assumed greater responsibility for the next cycle after making a great decision to reappear to humanity, and for the spiritual hierarchy, which Christ oversees, to approach humanity with him. And this great approach is termed in the teachings the externalization of the hierarchy. Now, when that appearance will take place, no one knows, not even the masters of love wisdom, given that so much depends upon the choices and decisions made by humanity. So the time frame, the time period is an unknown. However, what we do know is that plans for the reappearance will be laid after the 2025 conclave, which is right around the corner. We are already in those energies. And this is when the spiritual hierarchy and great beings who overlook the destiny of humanity and the planet Earth will meet in a great conclave meeting and see the progress and the evolution that has been made thus far, and make some great decisions about next steps and the next cycle. So there is more to be said, and more will come out about this in the future and in actually the very near future. And there are some wonderful conversations going on amongst students and disciples about this great transition. So that is not for now. All right, so let us move into meditation. And I want to prepare us with the thought that was actually given by the Christ to his disciples. When thine eye is single, thy whole body is filled with light. And here we see in this image this light in the ajna center. And it is a reference to the light that unfolds and is developed over time, referred to as the third eye. And the third eye, let us keep in mind, is not the same as the ajna center. And that's all that we can say at this moment. And before I move into the meditation proper, I want to say that we will be sounding the sacred word Om. And when you sound it in your own sacred space, some of you may have not sounded it, some may not be used to sounding it. But the more you do, the more comfortable you will be with the sounding of the sacred word Om. This is that sound that is sounding ever, ever, ever present throughout the universe. And those who develop their subtle senses can actually hear that sound all the time. For us, we will be using it intentionally as a method of purifying, releasing, and heightening our centers along the great central channel. And so I will lead us through some specific visualizations. But the only thing that I want to add right now about sounding the Om is to practice sounding it as a vibration that comes through all of your body. And so it isn't just sounded through the throat as a harsh sound. It is sounded through the face, through the nasal passages, through the vibration in the head, the crown, the throat, and all of the centers. So it's best practiced if you can sound it very softly and feel that vibration flowing through you. All right, so let us sound in your private space to begin the sacred word Om, allowing its vibration to resonate all the body centers as we move into the peaceful presence of the soul. And let us consciously attune with the energy of Taurus, pouring through the heart of the sun and streaming into our solar system as that in which we live and move and have our being. Visualize this energy pouring through the heart of divine love. That central fire of love that informs all the universe. And in a downflow of these energies, of these life energies, we breathe the breath of life that is the heart of the sun. And visualize that it's pouring through you and irradiating your mental body with light. And infusing your feeling body with love. And suffusing your physical etheric body with life. And now, let us take another conscious breath of life, pouring through all the centers. And audibly sound forth the sacred word Om, visualizing the lesser vibrations in all of these three bodies, dissolving, melting, releasing atoms of lesser vibration. And now, with conscious, intense, spiritual aspiration, inwardly attuning as high to a vibrational state as you can imagine, feel, intuit, sense. Breathe in atoms, drawing in atoms of high vibration. And this time, silently and imaginatively, sound the sacred word, pouring through all the centers. And let us realize that every intentional, conscious breath of life, with the Om sounding forth, is a deeper, truer entry into the true soul, providing a bridge for its descent and ascent, and further expanding true soul consciousness. And let us now expand and extend this light that is flowing through us into the field in which we live and move and have our being. Extending outwardly in ripples and concentric circles of light, pouring into your environment, the home in which you live, the community. And in the speed of light throughout the nation, all nations, and the world. And now, let us connect in this enlivened state, consciously working as a group, in group approach to divinity, knowing that the soul is group conscious and group aware. So in this enlivened state, expanding with the solar energies flowing through us, let us imaginatively see ourselves standing in a very, very large circle of souls gathered and purposed to work in group approach to divinity. And let us see each other as radiant spheres of living light and love and holy will. And once again, with the speed of light and in one simultaneous movement, imagine extending a ray of love and light to all here gathered. And sound a silent Om, carrying that light and love, soul to soul, heart to heart, mind to mind. Thereby creating a field of light and love and higher will. And now let us come into the presence and resonance with the great potency of the inner groups, within which center we see the star, five-pointed, surrounded by 8 petals, and 49 ashrams. And this is the ashram of the Lord of Love, the Prince of Peace. And just for a moment, let us visualize let us intuit and know that this is real. It is through love, the heart, that we can link with the presence of the Christ and the great ones. So now, as a living, unified field of vibration, with all here present and attuned, let us extend a ray of love and light to the Christ, the Lord of Love, the Prince of Peace, and the spiritual hierarchy. And let us imagine that surrounding this great field of beings is a stupendous triangle made up of 3 points, beings of great power and light and love. And their names have been referred to as the Spirit of Peace, the Avatar of Synthesis, and the Buddha, all augmenting the Christ in the work of the New Age of Aquarius. Let us take a breath of life and allow the energy to which we have sent light and love return to us, pouring through the crown of every participant, heightening our vibration, heightening the groups to which we belong, heightening the soul of humanity, the soul of every nation. And once again, through each and every one of us on the ground of daily living, where on earth we live and move and have our being. And now let us enter into the silence for a few minutes. And either simply stay with the energy that is flowing through you now, or bring to mind the keynote, the key word of the soul in Taurus. I see, and when the eye is opened, all is illumined. We will stay with this keyword for a few minutes, and then we will have one more. So in the region of the third eye and the Ajna center, again, I see, and when the eye is opened, all is illumined. Let us allow and know that this energy will continue to work in us and through us. And now add another phrase: the will to love. the will to love. And the potency of this will comes from the great star Sirius through our solar system, directly to the planetary Christ, the cosmic Christ to the planetary Christ, to the Christ in each and every one of us, the will to love. Open your hands in the open, receptive mode mudra. Open palms and receive this magnetic, impelling energy of the cosmic Christ, flowing to and through the crown center, exchanging every atom with itself. And in the energy field that we have now created in ourselves, in our groups, in our communities, in our nations, in the world, let us together sound the great invocation. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into human minds. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into human hearts. Let the coming one appear on earth. From the center where the will of God is known, Let purpose guide all human will, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center, which we call the human race, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Om. Om. So, friends, this concludes the meditation from the Mount. Thank you for your participation. Tomorrow is the day of the actual full moon. And there are a number of real-time rituals going on around by the spiritual community. And one of them will be held by us, Sheldon and I. We have an esoteric Advent program offered. And so tomorrow we will offer in real time the actual ritual of invocation and evocation. So the exact moment of the full moon tomorrow is at 4:49 p.m. Pacific time, 7:49 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And for this ritual, we will start about an hour and a half earlier than the actual full moon time. So if anyone here would like to participate, you are more than welcome to attend. Just go to the esotericadvent.org. You can see this on your screen. And click on the tab titled The 7-Day Full Moon Rituals. And click on Taurus 2024. Or there's also a tab titled Zoom Webinars. The link will be at that at the very top as well. It's a live link. Just click on it and that will get you in to the program. So blessings to one and all. Thank you.